fun doing things. It's just blowing the truck. But it's so much fun to blame the busing.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the regular meeting of Council to order. Our clerk today will be Ms. Sheila Gurry. We do have some late items to introduce, though, Ms. Gurry, please.
Thank you, Worship. So we are adding Community Charter Section 90, subsection 1, A, C, and G to the closed meeting.
Thank you very much. A procedural motion to proceed in camera. Moved Councillor Thorpe, seconded Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome all of you to the regular September 11th meeting of Council. I'd like to first recognize that we are gathered on the traditional territory of the Snuneymuxw First Nation. Our clerk tonight will be Ms. Sheila Gurry. Tonight's regular meeting of Council will be held in accordance with the Community Charter and Council Procedure Bylaw 2018, number 7272. The question period sign-up sheet is on the table by the double doors to my left for agenda items only. If during the meeting any member of the gallery has a question relating to an agenda item, please write down your name and the agenda item on the sheet. Members have been granted the authority to join meetings electronically, and I want to welcome Councillor Gesselbrock, who's with us tonight on the big screen. And the first item on the agenda is late items, Ms. Gurry, and we have one.
Yes, thank you, Worship. For late items this evening, we have agenda item 14A, notice of motion, the addition of Councillor Armstrong's notice of motion regarding hobby farms operating within the city of Nanaimo. And that's it, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Motion for adoption of the agenda is amended. Moved Councillor Thorpe, seconded Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. We have no minutes to adopt. On to the Mayor's report. I'll try and be brief. The first item is to remind the citizens that we have adopted at the Monday, August 20th Council meeting our support for expedited timelines for implementing the Province of British Columbia's Zero Carbon Step Code and BC Energy Step Code. Staff will now proceed with drafting the necessary amendment bylaw to the city's building bylaw, which will come back to Council for consideration and approvals prior to its adoption. The changes support Council's goal of reducing carbon-wide CO2 emissions to between 50 to 58% below 2010 levels by 2030. I also want to remind everyone that the City of Nanaimo will commence an alternative approval process to gain permission from residents to remove park dedication from the old Harewood School field located at 502 Howard Avenue. The process begins Wednesday, September the 6th, 2023, and will run until Tuesday, October the 10th, 2023. The Park Dedication Amendment Bylaw 2023 number 7182.01, which received 3 readings from Council on August 28th, 2023, will remove the parkland designation on 502 Howard Avenue. The alternative approval process is running concurrently with the City Plan Amendment Application number OCP 103 and rezoning application number RA493 as part of the Tutuxton project. And I would remind everyone that this is a gain for the city, it's not a loss. The Tutuxton project is a joint initiative between Sinamic First Nation, the City of Nanaimo, BC Housing, and Nanaimo Ladysmith Public Schools to redevelop the properties at 564 5th Street, 502 and 505 Howard Avenue. That will allow for the construction of several hundred housing units and public spaces as well. In terms of the alternative approval process, voters will have this 33-day period that I mentioned earlier to voice their opposition to the removal of the parkland dedication at 502 Howard Avenue, and may do so by filling out an elector response form available at City Hall or on the website. As in an election, each eligible voter is permitted one response. Completed forms must be dropped off or mailed to City Hall by 4:30 p.m. on Tuesday, October the 10th. The city cannot accept copies of forms or ones that are emailed or faxed. We are also in the midst of conducting a program to seek input on initiatives aimed at increasing housing options in Nanaimo. The public survey now online and an open house on September 12th. With rising housing costs and an influx of newcomers, more housing options are needed for Nanaimo. To address Nanaimo's housing needs, the city is inviting residents to provide feedback on a series of recommended changes aimed at more attainable housing options in the city. There are two opportunities to provide input. An online survey will be available on the city's website until September 29th, 2023, and a public open house on Tuesday, September 12th from 6 to 8 p.m. in the Bevan Park Social Centre at 2300 Boeing Road. The Increasing Housing Options program focuses on 4 key areas: expanding secondary suite regulations, adding infill housing in existing neighborhoods, the so-called missing middle housing, adaptable housing for all physical abilities, and housing for families. Between 2020 and 2022, the city engaged with residents through the Reimagine Nanaimo process that culminated in the adoption of City Plan, Nanaimo Reimagined, in July 2022. The program is informed by what was heard during the Reimagine Nanaimo process, the Nanaimo Affordable Housing Strategy 2018, and the city's housing needs report completed in May 2023. In addition, the public is invited to the Nanaimo Operations Center Project Open House. This is an information session that focuses on the first phase of new public works facilities. That open house will be on at 4:30 to 7 p.m. on Wednesday, September 13th at the Bevan Park Social Centre. The Nanaimo Operations Centre project will see the eventual replacement of aging facilities and consolidation of public works and park recreation operations into one location. The first phase of the project includes replacing the existing fleet and maintenance facility, a truck wash and dump facility, and site service for future phases of the project, replacing stormwater management facilities on site, and building a stormwater retention pond in Bevan Park at the corner of Norman and Labio Road, retrofitting the training tower located at Fire Station Number 2, building a paved trail along the Labio Road side of Bevan Park. And I encourage the public to come out. I also want to recognize that yesterday, September the 10th, was the Firefighters' National Memorial Day. The National Memorial Day, established in 2017, gives Canadians an opportunity each year to remember firefighters who have lost their lives while on the job. The second Sunday in September of each year is now designated in their memory. The Canadian flag at City Hall was lowered to half-mast over the weekend in respect. According to the Canadian Fallen Firefighters Foundation, over 1,300 firefighters died in the line of duty since 1848. We recognize and thank all the firefighters in the City of Nanaimo and volunteers beyond our boundaries for all you do to keep us safe and ensure our property and neighborhoods are safe as well. Thank you. That is the Mayor's report. We're now on to presentations, and I'm delighted to announce the first of 3 tonight, and that's the Community Recreation Summer 2023. And presenting will be Damon Johnson, the Manager of Recreation Services, and Amanda Daly, Recreation Coordinator. Oh, pardon me, and I'm just skipping right over the big cheese herself, Ms. Osborne. I do apologize, but that's not in my notes, and of course I can't think on my own, so if it's not in my notes, I'm going to blame staff.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. During the summer months, the staff in Community Recreation Services enhance their focus and their energy towards enriching the lives of children, youth, and families in our community. They provide exceptional service to our community by the way of creating a safe, inclusive, and fun summer full of activities for children and youth, and ultimately for the families during their summer break. Our city plan speaks to a healthy Nanaimo and an enriched Nanaimo. The programs and events offered through community and recreation during the summer exemplify these policies. Over the summer months, I have had the privilege to witness so many special moments of summer memories being made in our parks and our facilities by this team. Community recreation has had a really great summer. We are really happy to be back. We have an incredible summer staff, and we had very strong participation numbers. We are happy to be here today to share with you some of these achievements and successes. So I would like to introduce Mr. Damon Johnson, Manager of Community Recreation, and Ms. Amanda Daly, a Recreation Coordinator, to provide you with the Community Recreation Summer Summary.
And thank you very much for that introduction. Please step up to the mic.
Great, and good evening. And my name is Damon Johnson, as mentioned earlier, Manager of Recreation Services with the Recreation and Culture Division. Truly, thank you so much, Council, for your time to be able to share the great and amazing work that was achieved this summer in community recreation. I'm really excited to be here. To start the presentation tonight, we've got a really short video that I really think captures the essence of how amazing this summer was for our community and the children and youth and families that we provide services to. So I'd like to show that video now, if you could turn that on. Thank you. So thank you very much. I really hope you enjoyed that video. And I think it just, a video can speak so many words about the amazing things that are happening in our community. And we're just so proud to be able to be a part of that. And so we are going to move into our short presentation today and share some of the highlights of our summer events and programs with Council tonight. Great. So by way of introduction, of course, as mentioned earlier by Ms. Osborne, the summer is such an important time for recreation and culture. I mean, we are all about the community and making sure that we're developing programs for children, youth, and families that really foster and support things like play and learning and opportunities for inclusion and accessibility, of course, physical activity, creating new experiences, making sure that we have opportunities for children to be creative and try new things, and of course, develop new friendships as well. So during the summer months, our team in community recreation plans and delivers a diverse array of recreation and cultural programming for our community. Things like free family fun nights, Canada Day celebrations, which many of you were able to attend with us and come together as a community, which was great. Sports camps, we've got day camps, and of course our well-known Leaders in Training program. So proud to be able to say community recreation is back, and we've returned stronger than ever since the pandemic, and really gotten back to delivering those important programs that the community relies on us so much for. So I'd like to now turn the presentation over to Miss Daly, and as mentioned earlier, she's a member of our recreation coordinator team, and she will be talking about kind of some more details about the types of programs that we offer, and of course the amazing group of staff and volunteers that this work wouldn't be able to happen without their leadership and commitment to what we do in community recreation. So I'll pass it over to Miss Daly.
Thank you, Damon. Good evening, Council. So I got to tell you about our amazing summer, and it was really amazing. So we have many summer camp opportunities for families to choose from, starting with our more traditional camps, Bone Explorers, Camp Holidays, Camp Wild, and Girls Get Active. And then we have some specialized or theme camps, such as Tennis Camp, Junior LIT, Tree Frogs, and our integration program. Summer camps are designed based on feedback from the community and represent a wide variety of interests. Our camps are dispersed throughout the community from south to north Nanaimo and are open 8:30 to 5 p.m. This aligns with our goals to ensure summer camps are accessible for everyone. At camp, children are introduced to many activities that they may not have experienced, such as sports, something like disc golf, for example, arts and crafts, pottery, games, field trips, for example, Nanaimo Art Gallery, Nanaimo Museum, nature, and the environment. Leaders utilize the RDN transit system to get to and from these amazing experiences. This year, we experienced a high return in our registration numbers with 4,441 registrations and awesome smiles. As I mentioned, the integration program is funded by the Ministry of Children and Family Development and has been a long-standing partnership with the City of Nanaimo. This program supports children with diverse abilities and provides one-on-one support for children in our mainstream summer camps. Though this program has changed over the last couple of years, we've maintained a strong relationship with MCFD to still deliver a program that removes barriers, allowing access for children with diverse abilities. This summer, 58 amazing children were integrated into our summer camps. This program is often the highlight of these children's summers. So just to share one quote from a parent, he says, "Can I just say that Mr. Monroe, one of our summer leaders, was the best teacher and support my son has ever had in his life. The guy was unreal." So pretty awesome. Then we have our contract camps. We also partnered with many wonderful community organizations to enhance the selection of camps offered to the community that include rock climbing, soccer, basketball, golf, martial arts, creative writing, bike camps, so technology and computer programming, music, and more. These programs saw 821 registrations. Our playgrounds. With our playground program, the intention is to provide free, accessible programming in neighborhood and urban nodes throughout the community. Children and families participate in many activities, games, such as parachute, crafts, water games, and more. This summer's locations from north to south were Groveland Gyro Park, Mansfield Park, Harewood Centennial Park, and Country Hills Park. So our plans for 2024, we'll be looking to expand our summer camp offerings based on the demand we are seeing in the community. But bear with us, we're still determining what that could look like, so stay tuned. All right, and none of this work could happen without our amazing leadership and supervision of our summer camp leader team and our volunteers, as we have some here tonight. We wave. All right. Every year, the recreation coordinator team goes through an extensive recruitment to hire, train, and onboard 50 summer leaders to work in our summer camps and playgrounds. I'm sure you've seen them out and about the community wearing their orange shirts. To prepare our summer leaders for the summer, they attend a wide range of training sessions over a 4-day period. Training sessions include safety supervision, freedom of information and privacy protection, health and safety, inclusion, games workshops, a day in the life of camp, team building, and communication. So as a note too, our Canada Summer Jobs Grant, we received funds for 9 positions out of the 50 summer camp leaders. And then we have our LIT and Quest program. The Leaders in Training program provides leadership training to youth ages 13 to 18 and opportunities for volunteer placements that support community events, programs, as well as our own summer camps and events. It's interesting to note that many of our summer hires or summer camp leaders all took the LIT and Quest program, quite a few of them. The LIT program had 68 registered this year, and the Quest program had 21 youth registered. Combined, the youth in the LIT program contributed to 9,000 volunteer hours this summer. Pretty amazing. So the plans for the LIT and Quest program include expanding the program with an addition of a new stream called Q2. The focus of this program is to provide youth ages 16 to 18 with additional training in first aid, food safe, customer service, officiating, NCCP coaching, fundamental movement skills, and more. Go ahead. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Ms. Daly. Just before I carry on with our presentation, I'm going to put all these amazing people behind us completely on the spot and ask them to introduce themselves to Mayor and Council tonight. So I'll start with this young lady on the end who might have a resemblance to me, but we could just...
I'm Sophie Johnson.
Thank you, Sophie.
I'm Peyton Holland. I'm Piper Holland. I'm Helena Cusick. I'm Isabel Bernabé. My name is Cassia Rendoling. I'm Emily. I'm the LIT coordinator.
I'm David Madsen.
My name is Allison Gregory. I did both the LIT and Quest program.
Yes, great. Thank you all for that, and I apologize for that, but I think it's really important to acknowledge just the amazing work that this group of people does in our community and for our community. So, as touched on earlier, we're also heavily involved in many summer events throughout the community. And I'll just flip to my notes here. It really kicks off the season with Canada Day. And this year we had 15,000 people, and it was such a great turnout. The weather was phenomenal. There is so much to do down there. And, you know, for us to get back to that like it was before is just so important, and to see how the community is responding and coming out and enjoying it. So as you know, for the members of council who were there, everything from food trucks to entertainment to interactive booths is offered at Canada Day. We were also involved in Free Family Fun Nights, and this was brought back, and we did have a pause due to the pandemic, but we brought all 3 of them back. One was held at Departure Bay, one was held at Mansfield Park, and one was held also at Centennial Park. And again, that's about free programming. It's outreach programming, so we're going to the community and into neighborhoods and providing opportunities for recreation and culture. And again, barrier-free is just so important for us in terms of accessibility. We were live and really did well in being at the Commercial Street Market and engaging with the community. We were there for all 11 weeks. We had an interactive booth there. And it was just our opportunity to talk to the public and hear what they want to see and what they're enjoying, and really for us to promote our programs and services in the community. And that was a lot of fun. So to look ahead to the fall, of course, now summer is really wound down for us, and now we're moving ahead to the fall. And on the slide is a picture of the most current activity guide. And so we're excited about that. And I think our registration numbers really speak for themselves. So to rewind to last year, our first day of registration, we had just over 3,500 registrations. That's on the first day. Fast forward this year, we're up over 6,500 registrations in a year. So again, I think that speaks to the work we do and the level of interest that's out there in the community. So lots coming up with new programs for the fall. We've got cold water therapy classes. We've got spin classes. We've got an early years basketball program, a youth lounge program that we're hoping to expand. So just a wide range of different programs for all ages and all abilities. Yesterday, you may have heard, we had an open house at Oliver Woods Community Center, and I'm just happy to report to council that that was really, really well attended and a great chance for again, us to engage with the community. So as I've mentioned a number of times, we're back and the community is responding really, really well. And we're back to all that meaningful work that's so important to the health and well-being of our community. So again, council, thank you so much for the opportunity to share this with you. And of course, we're happy to take any questions that council may have.
Thank you very much, and council does have some questions. Please, Councillor Armstrong and then Councillor Thorpe.
No, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your presentation, and thank you to all those that worked this summer. It's a great program. Really appreciate it. Appreciate you being here. You said that when you were at the markets, the summer markets, what did you hear most back from people as to what they liked or would like to see?
Yes, through the chair to Councillor Armstrong. The one that I attended, we were engaging around getting feedback around our parks and trails. And so the interactive component we had was to ask the public what was their favorite park or trail. And so that was one of the sessions that I attended. And that's really what we heard a lot about was our parks and trails and facilities, for sure.
And my last question. You were mentioning the youth lounges. Is there any appetite to move them throughout the city, or right now just in one specific area?
Through the chair to Councillor Armstrong, yes, we do hope to try and expand that program and offer different locations throughout the community, again, to remove those barriers to access that might pose a challenge for some of our youth in the community.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councillor Thorpe, and then Councillor Perino.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and through you to our presenters, Mr. Johnston and Ms. Daly, and to everybody else involved in the program. Thank you, first of all, for the work you do. This has been an extremely valuable program for many years now in our city, and I congratulate everybody for making it so successful. And I reference the partial name of the program. We refer to LIT and Quest, LIT, Leaders in Training, and that's exactly what this is doing. It is giving young people a chance to train to be leaders in our city, introducing them to volunteerism, giving them a chance to work with other people, gain skills, and gain confidence. And I just know how valuable this has been. So thank you. I do have a question, and it ties into that. I heard Ms. Daly reference Q2 as a new aspect of this program. Could you just elaborate on that a little bit for me? It sounds interesting. Or Mr. Johnston.
Yes, absolutely. Through the chair to Councillor Thorpe, I'd be happy to. So we really believe that there's an opportunity for us to provide more specific training to young people in our community that would really align with what they need to get out there into the labor force and have those skills and that knowledge to look for employment as well. So when we're thinking about those basic level, entry level certifications, it's things like first aid it's food safe if they're going into, you know, the food and beverage industry or things like that. So we're really targeting sort of the older demographic of youth, so you know, it's 15 to 18, and those youth that are really looking to get a paid position. And so that would be the expansion of that program we hope to launch in 2024.
Great idea. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Perino.
Thank you, Your Worship, and a question through you to Mr. Johnston or Ms. Daly. I heard you say 6,500 registrants. Is that correct? Is that what it was?
Yes, through the chair to Councillor Perino, yes. So we had over 6,500 registrations on the first day of registration. Wow.
So my concern is how many are not able to get in? How short are we? I know this from personal experience because we're never organized in our family to get there the first day. So we've missed out on numerous things. And I just wonder how many children are not able to get into these fabulous programs. And I just wonder, how can we expand it?
Yeah, well, through the chair to Councillor Perino, yes, and great comment. And we're always looking for ways to try and accommodate our wait lists. And so that's one of the things the recreation coordinator team will be doing is assessing what is the demand out there and how can we add more courses where we can, provided we have the resources such as staffing to be able to do that.
Yes.
And so that's something we're just doing fluidly and all the time. And then as a program team, we will sit down and try and look for those trends or those certain areas where we're noticing a real spike in interest. But I don't have an exact number of our wait lists, but we always are monitoring that.
Okay, good. And as I say, it's just disorganization on our part, but it's just that you're so popular and it's wonderful programs. Congratulations, and thank you to everybody for being here.
Thank you very much. Much appreciate the presentation tonight. Sorry, Councillor Mayor. Sorry. Can't forget.
Thanks. No, I just want to say a big thank you to staff. And I graduated through the LIT program a long time ago, and it led to an illustrious lifeguarding career and a pathway to the council table. So for all the LIT folks that came out today, good work and looking forward to your future leadership.
Thank you, Councillor Gresselbrock, for that perspective from the aged in the community. Thank you very much. Much appreciate the presentation. The next item on the agenda is the 2023 Quest Pursuit of Excellence Award, and it's my honor to present that tonight. It is granted to someone in the second level of the Nanaimo City Leaders in Training program, which celebrated 40 years last year in 2022. The award recognizes the youth volunteer who has shown exemplary youth leadership in the community, contributed a significant number of volunteer hours, and been a role model for the program and other youth leaders in training. I want to point out that, and this is very personal, in an era where the importance of the individual is so emphasized and we spend so much time worrying about the feelings of everyone else and are concerned, and we seem to suffer from a high degree of mental health issues, and COVID stressed the population. I want to focus on an aspect of what these young people have learned, and it's something I constantly emphasize. You can call it the old man perspective on things, so forgive me. We are at our best when we are doing for others, when we are not focused on ourselves per se, but when we're focused on doing something for those around us. And that's, to me, the most important aspect of what hopefully you have learned in this program and been understanding and accepting and recognizing as so important during the course of your participation. So for me, that's an emphasis that we sometimes need to reflect on. And again, I emphasize, we are at our best when we are doing for others. And as a reward for that, if you do really well, along with the award tonight that I'm presenting comes a $500 bursary, which is given to the recipient of the award to be put towards post-secondary training and education. And I am extremely pleased tonight to announce that the award for the 2023 Quest Pursuit of Excellence Award is going to Aidan Madsen, who's with us tonight. I want to tell you a little bit about Aidan. He first participated in the Leaders in Training program in June 2021 and has been a Quest participant for 2 years now, Totaling over 450 volunteer hours, Aidan has strived to improve his leadership and initiative skills since joining the program. He is described as selfless, helpful, caring, and a passionate leader who is hoping to pursue a career in child and youth care. Oh God, forgive me, the wags will all go nuts. The only Karl Marx I can quote, and I quote it all the time, Marx once said, "All that is important is that which is young and growing." Aidan is a fine example of that which is young and growing. Aidan, I'd ask you to come to the front to accept your award and have your photo taken. Congratulations to you for your amazing leadership and volunteer work and contributions to our community. And on behalf of council and the city, wish you all the luck in your future endeavors. I'm going to suggest tonight that why should I get all the glory? I'm going to ask council to assemble with me in the front here, if that's all right. I want to assure everyone that that's one of the most pleasurable activities I've had in my day today, instead of answering cranky emails from disconcerting and sometimes angry constituents over the weekend, so thank you. Aidan, you've made my evening just as the presence of all of you young people has for the whole of council. Thank you for what you've done and participated in. I hope you continue, and remember what I said about doing for others. Thank you. All right, the next is an aquatics update. We're going to Ms. Osborne first again. My notes. Before we get to Kathy Gonzalez, Ms. Osborne, please, you'll introduce this.
Good evening once again, Mayor and Council. The programs and services offered through City of Nanaimo Aquatics have tremendous benefit to our community and directly impact our citizens' health and well-being. The aquatic staff recognize the value of the service they provide, whether it's social, recreational, instructional, or therapeutic, and thus have made it a goal this year to focus on recruitment, as well as building capacity and resiliency so that we can, once again, provide the services that our community has come to expect. Amongst all the challenges that aquatics has faced this year, they too have had some successes and some achievements that we wanted to share with you tonight. So I would like to introduce to you Ms. Kathy Gonzalez, who is our manager of aquatics, as she provides you with a presentation on our aquatic services to date.
Thank you very much, and welcome, Ms. Gonzalez. Always nice to see you.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. Thank you so much for having me here today. I don't have a big video to show you or music or a whole bunch of volunteers, but I definitely appreciate the help from these volunteers this summer. They've been pretty amazing at the pool as well as out in the community. So I'm going to start off with, everybody seems to know that we have a lifeguard shortage, and it's impacted communities across the country, and unfortunately, Nanaimo was not immune to that lifeguard shortage. The community felt the pinch in the shortage in a number of key ways, including the number of swimming lessons being offered, the availability of aquatic fitness classes, access to Bevan Pool, and supervised swim sessions at Westwood Lake this summer. The aquatic staff have been working very hard to address the staffing shortage and build capacity within the division. The team started off the new year with personal resiliency assessments and training to guide the individuals in what steps they can take to personally support themselves and to support the team in their resilience. Along with the resiliency training, the team has been tackling the lifeguard shortage by focusing on 3 key initiatives, including ongoing recruitment, programming focused on advanced aquatic courses needed to certify lifeguards, and reduce cost training employment programs and partnerships. The aquatics team has worked very closely with HR to advertise opportunities, interview staff, complete reference checks, and hire lifeguards. It's been a very daunting process, but also a very important process to getting us back on track. Since January, staff have onboarded 43 new lifeguards, some of who you'll see at the bottom of the slide here. The aquatic supervisors have done a great job orientating these new lifeguards so they can offer swimming lessons and safety supervision during public swims. Additionally, we're expecting to hire another 20 lifeguards this September, including 10 candidates from the To the Rescue program. The new staff members have really helped with increasing capacity and providing consistent service delivery, and we hope to continue moving forward with building on the programs that we're doing and consistency. To further address the shortage and work towards achieving pre-pandemic levels of service, aquatic staff focused on advanced aquatic training, including the Bronze Medallion, Bronze Cross, National Lifeguard Award, and the Swim Instructor Program. By offering a larger volume of these programs than we would normally offer, we're hoping to saturate the community with individuals who will eventually be qualified to work as lifeguards immediately and in the next 1 to 3 years. To continue along the lines of offering larger volumes of advanced aquatic courses, the Aquatics Division was successful in partnering with School District 68 to provide the first level of lifeguard certification, that would be the Bronze Medallion, to 18 students in grade 8 and 9. From mid-April to the end of May, these students participated in training 1 afternoon per week during their school time. The program was offered for low cost to reduce barriers and encourage participation. Some of the students even went on to do further training through the summer. Aquatic supervisor and course instructor Eliza McGuire described the program as a huge success. She said it was exciting to watch the 18 youth become leaders over the 7 weeks of the training that they attended. She went on to explain that every candidate successfully completed all of the physical standards, many of which that seemed impossible to them on the very first day. They learned to step outside their comfort zone in a safe manner, and their willingness to engage and learn was demonstrated through their successful completion of the program. One of the participants, when asked if the school should consider continuing this partnership, was emphatic in her response. She said, "Definitely, it will save lives, and it also helps us to get jobs later." Another successful initiative to address the lifeguard shortage was the To the Rescue program, the pilot program that wrapped up on August 29th with 10 successfully certified lifeguard swim instructors. These individuals applied to participate in the program in May and were selected to partake in intensive lifeguard training with the goal of being hired with the city at the end of the training. The group began their training on July 4th and went through all of their courses over the following 8 weeks. During this time, they learned about aquatic services in Nanaimo. They were trained and tested in all advanced aquatic courses required to be a lifeguard, and they participated in swimming lesson teaching experiences at the end of August. We are excited to have all 10 joining us this September. They're also very excited to start teaching swimming lessons and serve the community. As a result of all of these initiatives to address the lifeguarding shortage and rebuild capacity in aquatic services, the Aquatics Division will be offering 226 more swimming lessons this fall as compared to last fall. We're able to resume aquatic therapy, aquatic fitness classes at both NAC and Bevan Pool. And we're also, weekend and early bird swim sessions at Bevan have also been restored. We are working towards a full schedule of supervised swims at Westwood Lake for next summer. So again, everything that we're doing is to build on the capacity and continue to serve the community. Despite the staffing challenges, the Aquatics Division was still able to offer many social, physical, mental, and economical benefits to the community. To date, the aquatic facilities have hosted 7 aquatic competitions, with an additional 4 competitions coming this fall. The Nanaimo Aquatic Center hosted one of the largest aquatic competitions in Canada from August 14th to August 20th, with over 2,000 athletes participating in springboard diving, artistic swimming, water polo, and speed swimming as part of the BC Summer Swimming Provincials. Between Friday and Sunday, there were 1,500 athletes and their families, not just one person with them, the whole family. Staff were kept very busy and on their toes responding to minor first aids, equipment needs, and maintaining the facility with all those people coming through the doors. The event was a huge success because of all of the efforts of every city staff member who was involved in the event. In between competitions, aquatic programs were offered to the community, including 45 advanced aquatic training courses, which certified 403 candidates at various levels of lifeguard training. Just under 5,000 children and youth participated in Learn to Swim programs, with another 2,200 students participating in drowning prevention programs through the Swim to Survive program, which is another partnership with School District 68. With the use of contract aquatic fitness instructors and whiteboard workouts, patrons were able to continue some level of aquatic fitness instruction. Aquatic fitness classes for individuals with balance concerns, injuries requiring rehabilitation, and chronic pain are hugely beneficial to their quality of life, and we continue to explore ways to offer that service and expand on what we're doing. One such program, I'm not sure if anybody had the opportunity to attend, but it was also on the front cover of our activity guide, was Aqua Zumba. It's a high-energy Latin dance-based aquatic workout that was introduced in the spring. It's been hugely popular, with 35 to 50 participants attending each class. The class is often described as a party in the water, and it seems to bring out the smiles and laughter each time the class is offered. If you have a chance, check it out. To help spread the word about water safety, staff engage with the community outside the pool through a number of different channels, including interactive booths at the Nanaimo Night Market, Indigenous Peoples Day, and just recently at VIU at the Connect Fair, which is geared towards international students. Social media awareness campaigns related to boat safety, life jackets, drowning prevention were ongoing throughout the year. Additionally, relevant water safety information has been on display in all of our facilities throughout the year to help deliver that message in a different way. Another water safety initiative that we're looking to expand on is the Water Safety Education Team, which was first implemented during the pandemic-related facility closures. The goal of this unique outreach team was to deliver water safety education in the community, but outside of the pool. According to the Life Saving Society, approximately 500 drownings occur annually, making drowning the third leading cause of unintentional death in Canadians under 60 years of age. In 2020, the team saw great success in delivering this messaging to summer camp participants, families and children attending the water parks, at community events, and in city parks throughout the summer. As part of building capacity for service delivery, we hope to build on this initiative in 2024 and continue to offer that water safety programming in an outreach capacity. Some other things that are coming up in the aquatics area is that both indoor aquatic facilities have undergone facility maintenance shutdowns between June and mid-September. During this time, the facilities have gone through deep cleaning and some upgrades related to services and accessibility. At the end of August, the play structure at the Aquatic Center was removed after providing the community with much enjoyment over the last 20 years. Many children will be sad to see it go, but in the coming years, replacement features will be installed that provide entertainment for the whole family. The replacement structures were designed to allow interaction for individuals 6 months to 100 years and most levels of mobility. Also coming to NAC upon reopening is additional accessibility parking at the front of the building and access gates to control the flow of public from the lobby into the change rooms. The access gates will help to ensure individuals using the weight room or accessing the pool or change rooms have checked in with the business services team before entering the facility. As many of you know, the last couple of years have been challenging for the aquatic staff, but despite these challenges, the staff continues to support aquatic services to the best of their abilities. The aquatics programs support a healthy lifestyle, provide opportunity for life skills, and offer a safe environment for physical activity and play. The team has many goals over the next year and beyond, with a primary focus on continuing to increase capacity for aquatic programs and services that best meet the changing needs of our community. I hope that I have provided you with a big enough snapshot of everything that the Aquatics has done over the last 9 months. If I've missed anything, please don't hesitate to ask any questions. Thank you so much.
Ms. Gonzalez, I'm not seeing any questions. Councillor Prino is always reliable.
I'm always reliable for a question or two.
Young faithful.
Yes, thank you. Excellent presentation. Thank you so much. I have to tell you that the number of complaints that we got about the therapeutic, lessons that were not available. I'm so glad to hear that they're up and running again, and the public will be so thrilled. So thank you so much. I know it's been a tough go, but you've done a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me just say, not seeing any other questioners, Ms. Gonzalez, and to Ms. Dirksen, who's with us tonight too, but to Parks and Recreation in general, but particularly to you, the two of you and your team, who faced a great deal of public behaviors by some of our citizens that were, how shall I say, beneath the standard one expects of civilized and polite people. And I know that it's been challenging, and bringing these programs back, recruiting staff has been enormously challenging, but I want to compliment you and thank you and the team for what you've been able to achieve. And the numbers, I think, that we saw tonight reflect how well you're doing. So on behalf of all of Council, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We have no committee minutes, Ms. Gurry. We have no consent items to adopt, and I could have done it during the mayor's report, but we're not going to sing it, but I can't pass the evening, notwithstanding your lack of welcoming reception when we sang it to you earlier today. I just want to announce to everyone that it is Ms. Gurry's birthday today. Very happy birthday to her. And you can tell by the look on her face she's not thrilled about it, but you know, we're all getting older. The next item on the agenda are delegations unrelated to agenda items. And we have Ann Martin, Board Director, Take a Hike Foundation, and I assume she's coming in via Zoom.
Your Worship, she does not seem to be on Zoom, so I think what is best is that we put this off, and if she comes later on in the agenda before we're done, we can get to her then.
We'll carry on.
Thank you.
All right, very good. Then we are on to reports. The first is A, bylaw regulation of controlled substances. Mr. Lindsay, good evening. Mr. LaBerge, following you up, thank you very much.
Good evening, Your Worship. Council, I'm going to turn this over. This was a report that was requested by Council, but I'm going to turn it over to Mr. LaBerge just to briefly walk you through the report.
Mr. LaBerge, thank you.
Yeah. Good evening, Your Worship and Council. I know that Council directed this report back in May, and it's been 4 months, and thanks for your patience. I've actually rewritten this report a couple of times just because the context has changed a number of times through the summer. We've communicated with a number of municipalities around the province to look at the different approaches. What I can tell Council is that this is a matter really of utmost interest and concern to all municipalities throughout the province. I can tell you that the majority of municipalities have informed us that they're not contemplating any new or updated bylaws with respect to controlled substances at this time. And that's for a number of reasons. A lot of them are taking time to evaluate the impacts that decriminalization's had on public safety in their communities. One of the things that the medical health officers around the provinces have been asking is that we don't come out of the gates too quickly and start making regulated changes until we actually know if there's been an increase in problem or some unintended consequences. A lot of municipalities like ourselves are observing the experiences in other municipalities that have enacted new bylaws, where we actually had bylaws regulating controlled substances before decriminalization. And most recently, now from word from the province, they're waiting for the anticipated changes to provincial policy and legislation that we're told may be forthcoming at the fall session. Council's been provided with a really brief overview of approaches taken by a couple of municipalities, and this is by no means is exhaustive, but just shows some of the different approaches. And I just want to briefly highlight to Council the experience of Campbell River, because they were one of the first municipalities to enact new regulatory bylaws after decriminalization. And in the early onsets, the first bylaw they passed was very broad-based with a prohibition of consumption or display of controlled substances in any public place. And This quickly drew litigation action for a number of reasons, one of which that they hadn't done the required consultation with their medical health officer, and secondly, because they had also attached fine sanctions to the bylaw. And before that was ever tested in court, the municipality chose to rescind the bylaw, and with further consultation with the MHO, they drafted a new bylaw that was a little more general in nature, meaning that they prohibited possession of substances in certain places around parks and public facilities. And the other thing about the changes was that they also did not include any type of fine or ticketing sanctions at that time. The other municipality that recently enacted a bylaw was the city of Penticton, and they've done a very broad-based prohibition, not permitting the display or use of substances in any public place. But like Campbell River, they haven't tied any type of sanction or ticketing processes to their bylaw, which from an enforcement perspective is a bit curious. If there's no mechanisms to enforce a bylaw, it's not really clear what measures could actually be taken to obtain compliance when you're trying to enforce that bylaw. And council may have seen in the news most recently that Kamloops is just in the process of also enacting a new bylaw. And their bylaw would prohibit the use or display of substances in parks, urban forests, and beaches, or sidewalks within 100 meters of those places, and other child-centric locations. I did touch on the fact that medical health officers around the province are kind of consistent in their recommendations, and one of which is that they ask before any municipality enact a bylaw that they observe a 6-month period so they could effectively monitor the effects of decriminalization on consumption before introducing new bylaws. It has been about 6 or 7 months now, and that was part of our original recommendations, that we really wanted to wait and see what local impacts were. And the other thing that the MHO has really highlighted is that in monitoring the situation, if there were unintended consequences or increased public drug use, the types of public health advice that they wanted to provide was on other measures, health measures that could be taken to address the issue rather than regulatory responses. We did consult with our local medical health officer locally as required, and she made, I think, 3, reasonable requests or observations, and one saying that if we were to enact a bylaw and if it were to impose punitive sanctions that were similar to those that were removed by decriminalization, those types of measures would really effectively undermine the objectives of decriminalization itself, and that was one thing that she wanted council to consider. The second point she made was that it doesn't matter what we enact for bylaws. It's not going to change people's uses of substances, but what it does do is give a potential to move them to places where they're going to be less supported in case of overdose. And the last point she made was just urge us to communicate with the province, because at this point their announcement was made of some potential legislative changes this fall. So the next step staff did is we contacted the Solicitor General's office, and the one point I wanted to bring to council that I found a little bit curious was that they said there were no baseline measurements of public consumption before decriminalization. So, throughout this period, we've been told, wait 6 months and see what the impacts are, but in actual fact, it doesn't seem that there's any metrics to measure them against, which was interesting. But what they have been doing through the summer is receiving feedbacks from municipalities through the UBCM. They're packaging up the options for the government to consider. So a lot of municipalities have given their input, and they tell us that we can anticipate changes to policy and legislation this fall session. They're not providing details, of course, at this time, but we got the understanding it's likely to be focusing on child and family-centric types of locations. And the important thing to also pause and consider is that what they want to do is provide some consistency in approaches for municipalities around the province. So those are kind of the highlights that I wanted to bring to council's attention tonight. You know, in the meantime, we have been doing a lot of work. We have taken, I think, a very measured approach in supporting the objectives of decriminalization. That's in supporting the interventions and programs that Island Health and the province do have underway. We continue to communicate with our MHO and identify, you know, challenges that we see in the community with limitations in service and outreach. I think we're doing a very good job of monitoring the impacts of decriminalization locally. We've enhanced our databases to really capture some of the key indicators over time. I don't really have a lot of that information today for you, but over time I think we'll be able to speak to it. And I think most importantly, through our CSO program, we not only support our business community and our residents, but also the people that are using substances. So I'll pause there just to say we're really looking forward to seeing what the province comes up with this fall, and I'll answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. LeBerge, to you and your team generally. Councillors Thorpe and Armstrong in order.
Thank you, Your Worship. If you'll indulge me, I don't believe I have any questions of Mr. LeBerge, but I wanted to thank him for his report. And if I may, for the benefit of listeners or viewers, I would like to just read the 6 summary points at the end of this report. It is public knowledge. The first point says, the province received a federal exemption to decriminalize certain controlled substances for a 3-year period from January 2023 until January 2026. Second, Council has directed staff to provide options for bylaws to regulate consumption of controlled substances in public places. This was my motion back on May 15th, and it read, asking for staff to report on options to regulate the use of controlled substances in public spaces, including a summary of steps being proposed in other BC communities following provincial decriminalization. So Mr. LeBerge has responded to that with today's report. Thirdly, in summary, the Community Charter provides authority for local government to enact bylaws pertaining to matters of public health, but requires consultation with the medical health officer. Fourthly, the medical health officer has encouraged the city to not introduce bylaws that impose restrictions or penalties for public drug consumption. And lastly, I think I said 6, there's 5. Number 5, the provincial government is undertaking consultations to consider possible legislation to regulate consumption of controlled substances in family and child-focused public places, which is expected by year end. So I think a couple of weeks ago I indicated my preference to approach issues in a measured way and not to rush ahead of the province. So I am prepared to be patient, and I'll be very, very interested to hear what comes out of the fall sitting of the legislature. Excuse me, this topic I think is top of mind for many municipalities, and I expect at UBCM it should be a major topic of conversation. I note in the report that some bylaws, proposed bylaws, or those that have been introduced in other communities, it's felt impact persons who experience addictions and homelessness. And I'm going to suggest that we need to balance the needs of the entire community. And it's business owners that are being impacted as well, and I'm not suggesting that you disagree, Mr. LeBerge. Members of our tax-paying public are being adversely affected by having to deal with public drug use in public spaces. And quite frankly, I'm hearing a lot of people say they're not prepared to tolerate it. They want some action. So I'm here to say I'm willing to wait and see what the provincial government is going to come up with during the fall. But if I see no concerted action on this file, then I will be prepared at some future date to introduce a proposed bylaw for our city, and we'll see where council wants to go with that. But in the meantime, thank you for your background work. Thank you for the information you've provided today.
Thank you. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you. I agree with Councillor Thorpe. I think with the province acknowledging there's some issues, I do think it's best for us to wait to see what they bring up. One of my concerns is the province, I don't know if you can answer this in your conversations with the medical health officer, Has she looked at the impact this is having on community members? I was at a meeting with the business community on Friday, and they were talking about how some of them are now struggling from PTSD. Their kids are scared to leave their house. Their businesses are suffering immensely. Is that being taken into consideration, to your knowledge, by our medical health officer, who should also be representing all of the citizens, not just those that are users?
Through your worship, I think it would be fair to say that the medical health officer was really focused on the impacts on substance users and legislation. Staff certainly discussed the very points that you're raising, but they weren't really factored heavily in our conversation, I think it would be fair to say.
Thank you. And again, I agree with Councillor Thorpe. I think we should wait to see what the province brings forward, see what the UBCM says, and then if he does bring a motion forward, if there isn't sufficient, I'd certainly support it. But I do agree the best thing right now is to see what the province does so there is consistency. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't want to belabor this tonight. The report speaks for itself. Oh, sorry, Councillor Gesselbrock, I'll let you go first.
Thanks, Your Worship. I was traveling through Nelson this summer and had a chance to talk with some of the councillors there, and they actually just enacted a bylaw that restricts use of controlled of these substances in specific parks, and they laid out specific areas where you're not allowed to be using these drugs. And one of the councillors made an interesting point that, because there has been no norm set around usage, that, there is people that are using in areas around children and it's the whole goal of decriminalization was to reduce stigma. And in fact, this decriminalization has had an opposite effect in some cases of increasing stigma, because there is, a general sense of unsafety, especially in some areas. And I think Nelson has taken an interesting approach, and I think it's something that we should look at. And, the province is coming out supposedly with something around this, and maybe we should wait. But I think after UBCM and in the fall, we'll know what's happening. But I do think some norms around public drug use do need to be set, because as it is now, it is kind of the Wild West. And, I've seen enough now that I don't think it's having the desired effect of reducing stigma. And in fact, it's creating, a greater public concern and stigmatization. So thank you. And
thank you very much. And what I want to emphasize and say is that it is obvious from the report, and particularly in response to the challenge by Pivot Legal Society to Campbell River's bylaw, the public needs to understand that these bylaws have been passed, but there is no enforcement mechanism. There is no penalty. It is basically a community saying, you shouldn't do this, but that's it. We can't fine you, can't put you in jail, we can't enforce this through any method that is effective. And I get it, I'm going to quote, I've quoted it before, Anatole France, the great French philosopher, socialist, and Nobel Prize winner for literature, that law in its majestic equality forbids the rich as well as the poor to beg in the streets, to sleep under bridges, and to steal bread. And I get that. There's no sense trying to find somebody who's starving and living in the streets already. It makes no sense. But at the same time, as Councillor Thorpe has pointed out, it is not just about the people in the streets, it's the people who don't live in the streets, who don't want to have their children and their families exposed to drug use, open drug use, which is clearly having an incredibly damaging impact on the users in our streets, who are living the worst and most miserable lives of anyone in our community. And so I just find this extremely frustrating, because what has happened with the province's move to make us a bit of an exception in this country around decriminalization has not improved public health. The numbers of deaths are increasing. Around the issue of stigma, those who are dying are by and large dying at home alone. They are not necessarily homeless or unhoused. This has not been effective in meeting the needs of what the public health officers, with great respect, are supposed to be doing, which is protecting and promoting public health. I appreciate Councillor Thorpe's patience and Councillor Armstrong's remarks around this, I don't see any sense in proceeding with a bylaw. It may look good politically, but if anyone asks us, oh yes, we've passed a bylaw, but we can't do anything about it because the law is pretty clear. We can't enforce it. There's nothing we can do. So we're making a nice statement, but at some point, the province has to realize how crucial this is to the people in the city. As I've said before, I don't think anyone who is a frequent drug user wants to have their children with them walking by somebody openly consuming substances that are basically slowly killing them. In any event, I've gone on too long. I apologize. Councillor Eastmere first, and then Councillor Gesselbrock.
Thank you. Yes, I'm glad to see us waiting for the province's lead on this. I would also like to see the province lead on safe supply, on shelter and attainable housing for people. And in Nanaimo, in the first 7 months of 2023, we've had 76 deaths from toxic drugs. And that's going to eclipse our 77 deaths in all of 2022. So we're really in a crisis on this, and the people who are hurting the most from this are the people who are dying from the toxic drugs. And I realize it's really uncomfortable for people to see drug use happening in public, and I really hope that we can come to a place where we aren't seeing that every day, because people have a safe place to use, a safe place to live, and safe supply. And I'm really thankful for the work of Nanaimo's community action team for leading and ringing the alarm on the toxic drug crisis. And we can't get out of this crisis simply with decriminalization. That's not going to do it. That's one tiny piece of this puzzle, and unfortunately that's the only piece that the province has given us so far. So I really want to see the conversation about safe supply continue, and then supports for people so that they can help break the cycle. And you can't do that when you're living on the street. So I really appreciate everyone's comments tonight, and we have a lot of work to do on this. Thank you.
Councillor Gesselbrock.
Thanks, Your Worship. Just, in the same way that we do regulate where, we're with homelessness, we're not denying that, it's a human right to be able to camp, but we in Nanaimo do set some norms around where we can and how we can camp, and as designated certain areas that is allowable and where it's not. And I think that's where the City of Nelson has found a good balance with how it has been regulating where drug consumption can occur, by just outlining there are some spaces in the community where it's just not allowed. And I think that's pretty reasonable, because you're not denying that it can't be allowed in areas. You're simply outlining some areas where it just doesn't happen because there's a high traffic of children, and it just creates safety concerns. And I think that it is something that we should look into and explore, because I think you can find the proper balance of safety while allowing, us to really address what's needed to address the toxic drug supply and provide safety for everyone. So I hope staff can look into what Nelson is doing, and then when we review this in the fall, there's a few more options that are available, because I think that the legal challenges are real when you do a blanket prohibition. I don't think that's realistic, but I do think that there are some ways that we can achieve our objectives on both sides. Thank you.
Councillor Perino.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think the public should know that we're off, of course, to the UBCM next week, and this will be a topic of conversation, I hope, at length. I think for the average resident that I talk to, it's being able to take your child to a park, to school, and not have to worry about what they're going to be doing when their parent isn't paying absolute attention to them every second. There was a family in Nanaimo that had their dog. Like my dog, they sniff every single bush that there is, and their dog happened to sniff something that was, they believe, fentanyl, and they had to spend hundreds of dollars to try to save the dog. They still don't know whether or not he's going to survive. It was a large lab. A small dog certainly would not have survived such an act. And so, this is tough on everyone else besides those that are the most drug addicted and the most ill and suffering. This is what our families are going through, and this has to be dealt with. And I fully appreciate what Councillor Thorpe has said, and I intend to support it. If we don't see action from the province, I intend to be very vocal on this one as we go through, especially at the UBCM. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. LeBerge, thank you very much. Appreciate it tonight. The next is the Rent Supplement Program Review. Mr. Lindsay, please.
Hey, thank you, Your Worship. I'm joined this evening by Ms. Brinkman and Ms. Wood, who are here to answer any questions, and in a moment I'll turn it over to Ms. Wood, who's got a bit of a presentation. The next two items, because they're certainly connected. We have one presentation that we can work through and stop at council's convenience, I think, to answer questions and make the motions, or we can hear the whole presentation. So I think they'll will be somewhat fluid when I turn it over to Ms. Wood and she works through her presentation tonight on how you want to receive that. I did want to say that we originally intended to have these two items at your finance and audit meeting on Wednesday, but because you have a very full agenda Wednesday morning, we shifted them over here, which works really well for your schedule, but did not work so well for Ms. Wood's schedule, who was on holidays today. So I just wanted to thank her for actually adjusting her schedule and coming in and joining us this evening. So I'll turn it over to her.
So just so we're clear, we'll go through the whole presentation for both items before we talk about motions.
Your Worship, I'm sure Ms. Wood's happy to take questions throughout. There'll be a natural break, I understand, about halfway through where the motions will come up, but it's up to you if you want to receive the whole presentation or not.
Ms. Wood, good evening. Ms. Brinkman, welcome both of you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. As Mr. Lindsay said, I'm just going to run through the two reports that are before you tonight, the Rent Supplement Program Review and the Rent Bank Review. So I think it's just really important. There's often a lot of confusion about rent bank loans and rent supplement payments. So I thought I'd just take a minute to just provide a little bit of an example of the difference between the two. So the difference between a rent supplement payment and a rent bank forgivable loan is that rent supplements are funded payments that bridge the gap between what an individual or family can afford to pay and what their actual cost of housing is. It could be used in a private or non-market housing, and they're often kind of referred to as a practical way of providing affordable housing and are faster than building non-market housing units. Whereas a rent bank loan really is meant to provide a response to a short-term crisis. Maybe they can't pay their rent that month, or it's a utility bill. It can also be paid for a damage deposit if they suddenly find that they have to move. So rent bank recipients, though, do have to meet a certain criteria. Each local rent bank has a little bit of different criteria when you look at the different rent banks in BC, but the common criteria is that they do need to demonstrate that they have capacity to pay that back. So they will ask for bank records or employment records to make sure that they can demonstrate that they can pay that. So I'm just going to start with the rent supplement programs. So it's just important to note that they can play an important role in the prevention of homelessness. They can enable what we call stable housing in existing market rental units, and they do help to reduce the impact of poverty by freeing up cash that normally would be all going towards their housing costs. So things for food, clothing, medical services, education, so all those other things that people living in poverty struggle to pay, this helps to free up some cash for that as well. It's important to note that rent supplements can be an ongoing basis, and most of the time, that's what we hear is quite common, or they could be a one-time payment depending on the income and the household need. So the report before you provides a summary of Connective Society's Housing First Rent Supplement Program, which has received city funds in the past, as well as a little bit of a summary of other rent supplement programs. And each rent supplement program is unique, depending on criteria and the population that they serve. It was a little challenging trying to figure out, what populations were served and exactly how much rent supplements were out there. So attachment A tries to provide a little bit of a summary for you about the rent supplement programs that are provided through service agencies here in Nanaimo. So there's an estimated 264 rent supplement payments available through service agencies. These rent supplements are provided to service agencies by various funders, and this is where some of the overlap comes in. So City of Nanaimo, of course, the federal government through programs such as Reaching Home, they provide some rent supplement payments, and BC Housing. And BC Housing funds the majority of the supplements that are being provided in the city. Rent supplement payments are usually between $300 and $500, and actual payments will vary, again, depending on the funder, depending on the household, and depending on the need. And so that's why it's really hard to capture how many rent supplement payments are actually happening in the city of Nanaimo.
And just to be clear, just for the benefit of the public who's watching and tonight,
Yeah.
what we're talking about are any housing unit that's subsidized. We're talking about basically close to 1,600 units that are receiving some form of subsidy from I'll call it the state government through service agencies, et cetera, locally raised funds. People
Yeah,
who
so-
would otherwise not be able to afford a place to live and would be on the streets in all likelihood.
Yes. To answer and just to provide a little bit more clarity, sometimes those rent supplement payments are going more than once to one individual household. So that's why it's really hard to gauge how many households and actually how much payments are happening, because you could have one household, that requires $500 or $600 that may not provide that rent supplement for another family later on that might need the same amount, because once the funds run out on an annual basis, then they have to wait till the next fiscal. So that's why it's really complex. And out of the 120 or the 1,200, just over 1,200 BC housing supplements, the majority of them are being funneled through our service agencies, but BC Housing also gives direct rent supplement payments to individuals and families and seniors. So it's a really complex system. And I think sometimes too that, federal government provides some, but also they have some older programs that aren't counted in their rent supplements as actual supplement programs, but they're actually acting in the same way. So that's why it's quite complex that way. So hopefully that provides a little bit of clarity around there. So the Health and Housing Action Plan estimates that at least 6,000 housed people in Nanaimo are at risk of homelessness. And within that same action plan, they state that individuals are spending more than 30%, sometimes up to 50% of household income on housing costs. And many of these households have annual incomes of less than $30,000 annually. So the need is increasing. We're hearing all around that they're increasing among specific populations. And Council will remember that you did receive a presentation on the Housing Needs Report in 2023 about some of these populations that are struggling the most. So these include renters with low or moderate incomes, individuals with special needs, seniors, families, youth, Indigenous people, and people experiencing homelessness. So City Plan and the Affordable Housing Strategy support the use of tax revenues from the short-term rental accommodations to increase access to low-income and special needs housing. The Affordable Housing Strategy also recommends increasing the availability of rent supplement payments as just one of the ways the city can continue to support low-income and special needs housing. You'll see in your report, as reported in 2018, the province of BC extended the municipal and regional district tax to include an online accommodation platform tax known as OAP funds. In addition, at that same time, the province expanded the option for municipalities to use those OAP funds towards affordable housing initiatives. So that could include rent supplement payments. And to date, the city has $693,355 available in OAP funds. So through this report, staff are recommending that $150,000 of the OAP funds be used to expand supports to rent supplement programs in order to increase the number of rent supplement payments that are available, to expand the scope of criteria to include key areas of housing need as identified in the Housing Needs Report, and to increase the flexibility of rent supplements to allow for use with other types of financial assistance. Because we do hear individuals and families who do get some sort of social assistance from the government that it's not enough. They're paying most of those towards housing costs and not having funds for anything else that they need in their family. These OAP funds can be used to provide approximately 300 to 500 additional rent supplement payments, and that would be for averaging between $300 to $500 each rent supplement payment. And the funds could be distributed through the city's existing framework, such as a request for proposal or an EOI process too. So I'm happy to take questions, or if you want me to continue on, but just leave the floor open.
Councillor Hemmons.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to staff, thank you for this. One of the things we learned during the Health and Housing Task Force is that there's a lack of coordination of all of the funds that are going towards supporting people who are in precarious housing situations. So if council votes for this tonight and we allocate $150,000 towards this, do we look ahead to how we can use our community partners to distribute these funds in a way that have the most impact?
Through your worship, to Councillor Hammonds, that's a really good question, and I think it's one that we often have on our staff team as well, and we really lean on that housing needs report to identify those folks who are most at risk, who are facing the most challenges, and it's something that we really would want to build through our service agreements with our partners to ensure that they're reaching those most at need. That would include reporting requirements, so we can actually know who in the city is being served as well.
Thank you, and a follow-up, if I may. The report doesn't contemplate this, but I note that we've allotted $125,000 since 2016, and we're looking at $150,000 for 2023. Do we imagine this would be an annual contribution? Any contemplation there? Should be a significant increase, which would be wonderful.
Through the chair, with the MRDT program, it does get renewed every 5 years. So it will be renewed again in 2025. Okay. So we considered that as well, but because we're unsure of what will happen after 2025, we didn't want to assume that yet.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. That's all.
Thank you.
Continue on. Okay. Okay, so these few slides just cover a little bit of information about the Nanaimo Region Rent Bank. So the Rent Bank program is an eviction prevention and housing stability service that provides interest-free loans to low to moderate income renter households, as I mentioned, facing eviction or in need of assistance to pay essential utilities because of a short-term financial crisis. In addition, I think it's really important that in addition to these financial services, rent banks provide a whole other host of important services, including information or access to government benefits, debt consolidation, financial literacy, employment resources, and other community-based services that are focused on supporting the renter beyond their immediate crisis. In 2020, city staff and the former Nanaimo Homeless Coalition worked to establish a local rent bank here in Nanaimo. The Nanaimo Homeless Coalition at that time selected the John Howard Society, now known as Connective Society, as the lead applicant to operate the local rent bank. The John Howard Society and the city submitted a successful application to BC Rent Bank, and the Nanaimo Region Rent Bank began providing rent bank loans in January 2021. So the Rent Bank report review that's just before council also provides an overview of the Nanaimo Region Rent Bank as it's being operated by Connective Society. So that provides a bit of an overview of how it's operating in Nanaimo. The Nanaimo Rent Bank region is supported by BC Rent Bank, and BC Rent Bank is a project of the Van City Community Foundation with funding provided by the province of BC. So BC Rent Bank provides financial and infrastructure support to 17 community-based rent banks across BC. So not only do they provide some operational funding and some capital funding, but they also provide supports around staff training, resources, and they also basically provide an interface, a database for local rent banks to use where they actually collect those rent bank applications. So between January 2021 and March 2023, BC Rent Bank provided Connective Society with $178,617 for operating expenses and $40,000 for rent bank loan capital. And in January 2021, Council directed that $90,603 from the OAP funds be allocated to the Nanaimo Region Rent Bank. During this same timeframe, 165 loans were issued for the Nanaimo region, and it's estimated out of that 165 that 136 of these loans were distributed to the City of Nanaimo residents. In addition, the Nanaimo Regional District also provided Connective Society $25,000 for rent bank capital. I think it's also important to note that Connective Society has just recently also been contracted to provide rent bank services to the Alberni-Clayoquot region as well. So Connective Society has renewed its contract with BC Rent Bank to administer the Rent Bank program until March 31st, 2024. They've received $139,900 for operating expenses and up to $60,000 in capital if needed. I think it's important that BC Rent Bank always tries to see if they encourage local source funding for the rent bank capital, and that's how they're trying to be sustainable. Additionally, in June 2023, the regional district provided $10,000 in additional grant funds for the rent bank. So this time, Connective Society is requesting $75,000 as bridge funding until March 31st, 2024 for rent bank capital for City of Nanaimo residents. I mentioned earlier in the rent supplement review that City Plan and Affordable Housing supports the use of tax revenue from short-term rentals to increase access to low-income and special needs housing. In addition, the Health and Housing Action Plan identifies the need to target rent supports in Nanaimo through a rent bank or rent supplement program. BC Rent Bank is currently expanding and reviewing its programs and working to improve efficiency and efficacy of the rent bank services across BC. So it's really good timing for staff to work with BC Rent Bank to ensure that rent bank loans are being directed to the populations that are most at need, as identified in the Housing Needs Report. So staff would return to council in early 2024 with options for council to consider if they choose to expand financial support to the program. In the meantime, staff are recommending that City enter into a service agreement with Connective Society, allocate the $75,000 in OAP funds as bridge funding for loan capital for City of Nanaimo residents until March 31st, 2024.
Thank you very much for the very thorough reports. Councillor Hemmens.
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, great report. I'm just curious about the term bridge funding. Bridge funding is to get us through, you know, we're waiting for the next kind of allotment to come. I don't understand how this is being considered as bridge funding. What are we bridging to?
Yeah, good question, through your worship, to Councillor Hemmens. I think one of the things that you'll probably notice in the report is, and what BC Rent Bank is reporting, is that I think it was around 60 to 70% of rent banks are repaid in loan payments. And right now, because the local rent bank here has only been in operation just over 2 years, we're starting to see some of that repayment come in, because most of the plans are usually for 24 to 36 months. So these funds are just to try to bridge until we can kind of assess where we're at in Nanaimo with our rent bank, but also with BC Rent Bank, to make sure that any funds and loans that are happening are reaching out to other diverse populations, and that may include working with other service providers.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? If not, we have two recommended notices of motion. Councillor Armstrong moving the first one, seconding Councillor Hemmens. Councillor Eastmere.
Supportive of it. I just wanted to make sure we're moving the recommendation. Thank you.
All right, so the first motion is under B. If no discussion, all those in favor? Any contrary? None. Motion carries. And the next is under C. Moved by Councillor Hemmens, seconded by Councillor Armstrong. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. We have no bylaws tonight. Councillor Armstrong is given a notice of motion.
Yeah, I just would like to move that I'll bring the following motion forward. The council directs staff to complete a review of the provisions of the animal control bylaw and the zoning bylaw that regulate the keeping of poultry on large residential properties and provide options to further support the city's goals of food security at the next council meeting.
Thank you very much. And finally, under other business, Councillor Eastmere, FCM non-board committee member resolution. Councillor Eastmere, tell us a little bit about this.
Thank you so much, Council. So I was interested in joining the Federation of Canadian Municipalities committees, and so I was invited to join as a non-board member. And I should say this is coming a little bit late because our meetings actually happened last week. And my apologies, we were supposed to have this resolution come forward by September 5th, but we knew that there was an intention to bring it forward to this meeting. And I was invited to join the Standing Committee on Anti-Racism and Equity, which I felt really fits well with my role with Councillor Armstrong on the Advisory Committee on Accessibility and Inclusiveness, as well as the Standing Committee on Municipal Finance, Infrastructure and Transportation, and the BC Regional Caucus was also a really interesting meeting to sit in on and hear the issues from across the province. So hopefully with your support, I can officially get the endorsement to represent us as part of the FCM's non-board committee members. And there's I would have to be appointed at minimum until June 2024. So that could be the motion today, or if you think that you would encourage me to stay on longer, like a 2-year term and reassess after that, I'd be happy to commit to that as well.
Thank you. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you. Just a question, because we have a set budget, would this impact our set budget, or would, because we have a council motion, would that increase our budget for what was needed, Ms. Gurry?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Armstrong. This was actually raised with me today too, and I hadn't had time to get a response back. I have requested a response from FCM, but because they're back east and it was late in the day, I haven't heard one yet. I believe, and Councillor Eastmer can correct me if I'm wrong, I think the committees are mostly done virtually because of the cross-Canada spectrum, aside from the one probably meeting annually at FCM where the committees would meet then, and that is already in council's budget. So unless Councillor Eastmer tells me otherwise, I think it's currently budgeted and there's no additional costs.
Thank you. Then I would like to move the motion, but extend it till June 2025, do the 2 years, because 1 year is not enough time to get it. And I would like to thank her for putting her name forward, because I think it's really important that we get representation from the island there, and I agree with the work that she's doing on our committee, that it would be a great fit. So thank you very much for putting your name forward, and I'm sure it will pass.
Thank you. Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Your Worship.
And that was seconded by Councillor Hemmons, by the way.
I'm happy to support Councillor Eastmuir, and I thank her for being willing to take this on, but I do have a question maybe she can answer. In terms of process, how are our FCM committee, non-board committee members selected? It sounds to me like it's a case of somebody knows somebody, so they reach out and ask them. Is that how it's done? Or do you know?
There was an invitation if you were interested to put your name forward, and so it's an application process, and you just sort of express interest, you say where you're from and maybe what you're working on, and then you're sort of assigned. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure if anyone would have put their name forward and not been selected, but yeah, for me it was a case of there was an email that came through and said, am I interested? And I said, absolutely, I have capacity for that. But I appreciate the question. Yeah, thank you.
That's great. And again, thank you for your willingness. I guess this application method is the first I've heard of it, so I'm sort of interested. Councillor Armstrong is shaking her head no at me.
It's been there since I've been on.
Okay, it's not something I have been aware of, so that's my bad. Thank you.
Councillor Hemmons.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm eager to support this, and I just want to thank Councillor Eastmuir for doing this really important work. I think having a presence on the national stage is important for this council, for the island, and for the province, and it's not a small undertaking, so I'm happy to see you in this role.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you very much. I'm going to assume we have no question period items tonight. Mr. Sims indicates no. Do I have to?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Councillor Hemmons, seconded Councillor Armstrong. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. And thank you very much again to Ms. Gurry for working on her birthday.